Honestly, I'll say at the beginning of the game when we started developing the game, all of us, I think, pretty much went in going, "Can we play a betrayer god?" and we were shot down pretty quick. It was like, I'd rather you didn't.
Welcome to the Character Sheet, comic book's official home for all things tabletop and fantasy. I am one of the hosts, Christian Hoffer, and today I am joined by a very special guest talking about a very special project. I am with the one, the only, Taliesin Jaffe. Hello, sir.
Hello.
It's been a hot minute since we last talked to you. Last time we talked about Candela Obscura, and this time around we are going to talk about Downfall, which is the new 3-episode arc that Critical Role is in the middle of airing about some tales from the ancient past.
Introspective tragedy vibes. I love it.
Yeah. A different kind of horror. So the first question is an obvious one. As an immortal being, what is it like to role play as an immortal being?
Oh, I just sat back and let it happen. No, I'm honestly, it's this sort of acting is actually some of my favorite kind of acting and not called upon very often, of personified concepts and larger than life or gods and iconic ideas rather than characters. So I was bloody delighted by the whole notion of this is my favorite thing.
I have to ask, because the first sequence of Downfall is like one of the most metaphysical things that we've ever seen on, since Critical Role started. What was it like sitting at that table and watching it all unfold and actually like being part of this story about like the god's origin story?
That part was mild terror. That was I think the only moment of like genuine, oh, okay, we better get our heads screwed on straight for this. It's about to get very strange. Yeah, we had a little warning that it was going to start weird, but not. That was a little more than we were expecting. I loved every minute of it. But yeah, I mean, it was always going to be an interesting game. It was always going to be Brennan has a very unique flavor to what he likes to do, especially when he's doing serious stuff. And it was just every moment was great, and there are so many interesting synchronicities that came out of it, and interesting moments and definitions of these characters.
Well, and you're such a fan of, like you always seem to be very invested in like the lore behind Exandria and like the story that's like being told. So, I was kind of curious, like, just your like I've probably lost the question here. Like your it's got to just be a crazy moment. Just there's this whole nother side to the gods, and you're seeing them, have to take real form just to escape non-existence, and it's just wild just to think about that. Like, as a fan of mythology, seeing that sort of stuff, it was like watching, like reading the Silmarillion for the first time all over again.
Yeah, and I also they could leave. They could just leave. That is always an option, but apparently not one they're really keen to do. It was. I mean, that's such a good example. I honestly have never been a huge fan of these sorts of pantheons in Dungeons and Dragons to begin with, just due to the nature of the way that they were created, which was, a bunch of guys in the basement just figuring out what they wanted as it happened. It was always, I felt always a bit sloppy, and honestly more of just a interesting way to power paladins and clerics. And then since this game, I will admit I've had to change my tune. I was like, it never occurred to me that there was that they had like real personalities beyond what they put forward to the players. and watching everyone kind of give uh, give life to these characters made them far more flawed and far more interesting to me.
Mhm.
It had never occurred to me that they were flawed in that way, other than flawed in the way that gods are flawed. And then the betrayer gods. Oh, it had never. What an interesting way to deal with them. It gave me an insight into these gods that I had never really had before. I will admit.
So, you're playing as an aspect of the Wild Mother and
Yeah,
Downfall. So how, we touched a little bit about that on your previous answer, but like how because you played a cleric of the Wild Mother and
did.
and Caduceus. So how did your like relationship or like because that's kind of fascinating that you never really looked at the gods in that way because you played a cleric character. So
I did. Yeah, feel guilty. Um, I didn't. I always, well, for Caduceus, that particular cleric, I always kind of felt like I was laying on a philosophy to the Wild Mother without really asking her permission entirely.
Okay.
It was a way of looking at it that I found interesting and satisfying, but wasn't necessarily. I never wanted to push it um, further than that because it was not my god to manipulate.
Okay.
Um, but this was such, and I will admit, we pitched all of us pitched a bunch of different concepts for the gods that we wanted to play and why and what we wanted to do, and it was not my first thought. um she was not my first nor second thought. But uh it was such a good opportunity, to go back to that version of Caduceus and kind of create a Wild Mother that was a little bit more towards him, or what I call it, the perhaps I didn't make myself clear. Uh, because and still allow the version that that does the full version of her, which is this, is very protective and very takes a lot of responsibility for this place, and then just kind of whittle it down to this very essence of nature, especially during these circumstances and where she would have been. um, but yeah, it was nice to have permission to kind of give her a little bit of what tried to bring through Caduceus, and then also we talked amongst ourselves about the relationships between the gods, and it also fleshed her out in a very interesting way, of what we all think of each other, even when we're not on Exandria.
Well, the Wild Mother has a really intense relationship with Erathis, and we see a little bit of that in the first episode, because of the emissary and whatnot. But that's always been described as a very what is it tempestuous, like passionate relationship.
Hmm.
Did you decide to like redefine that relationship between those two characters at all as you were kind of laying the groundwork?
No,
Or
I
okay.
will say that was a one thing we actually had a long talk. Although I was not prepared for the emissary,
Okay.
so that was a surprise. I was expecting something as a player, clearly different. Uh, so that was definitely a curveball. Um, I was what came out through the conversations with the other players was that the Wild Mother. Well, I don't know, Wild Mother, just through my refraction, came off a little overbearing, and a little just the other. There was a lot of just conversations with the other gods of, like, and I'm, they were talking about me and their various domains, and I just felt myself kind of constantly going in, going, well, technically that's my domain, but definitely I can see the crossover. Just kind of, nature is a bit all encompassing, so it was not a lot of, I'll give you that one. And everyone was like, okay. And then when we got to the relationship between um, the notion of this very polar right and wrong, and nature, like they fit together in this really interesting way and complemented each other in this very interesting way. And one of the things Brendan wanted was various different perspectives on what has to be done. And in the original talk with Nashir, it was we were the joke was we were both on the very similar page where we both understood the assignment very clearly, but for very different reasons. So it was an awful lot of, yes, that's true. I don't know. Okay. What an interesting perspective, but they are right. Oh, they're not right, but the ends are definitely. So yeah, I really, we made a point of making that relationship, even though you don't necessarily see a ton of it yet on screen, very well fleshed out and well, what's the word I'm looking for? Clearly functional and loving.
Okay. I do have to ask one question about Asha, and I was a little bit surprised by the fact that she was a monk build instead of a druid. You'd think that the Wildmother would be a druid or cleric. Why did you choose a monk?
Well, first of all, I'll say it's been done. It was a little too obvious, I will admit, but also I can't imagine it's a good time for druids right now.
That's fair.
It was looking at the world and looking at where she was. It was not a place of power, and I kind of wanted her not to be. Well, and like we make this clear eventually is that she's not a person, she's a wolf.
Yeah.
And wolves and magic it gets a little wonky when you get into there. And I love the idea of just if she is nature, especially in the time when nature is not doing that well, of just deeply grounding her on a level that everyone else was not going to be grounded. That there was really not the supernatural bent of her was small and was always meant to be small. She was really making an effort to be something else than what everyone else was going to be doing. That was the thinking behind that, of just she wasn't going to be flashy. She wasn't going to be casting big spells. She was just going to be barefoot and angry. Or at least barefoot and hungry, not even angry. I won't say angry. She's barefoot and hungry. There was no anger in her. There never is, other than some relationship issues.
And speaking of various relationship issues, we knew based on the lore of Aor that the betrayer gods were going to be making an appearance, and when it became obvious that the prime deities were infiltrating Aor, you'd expect to see the betrayer gods show up too. So when they when you entered the temple and you saw the betrayer gods, what do you think was going through like Asha's head and the other god's head? I mean, you're in this war, but at the same time, at the beginning of the session, we saw where they all came from at the outset.
I think I mean, God, Brennan brought it on in such an interesting way, and I didn't have any expectations. Honestly, I'll say at the beginning of the game when we started developing the game, all of us, I think, pretty much went in going, "Can we play a betrayer god?" and we were shot down pretty quick. It was like, "I'd rather you didn't." Fine. Like, you'll break the game. We won't break the game. We'll be very good. But no, it was for the best. Clearly, it was for the best. I guess I guess what I mean, like the thing I took away from that is that it's not to them. It's not a war. I don't know even necessarily if they would call it a war if they were like in private. It's a dispute. It's a massive disagreement. It's a family. It's a deeply divided family. But war is not really, I think, how they would categorize it. It's down below that it's a war, which is, I suppose, part of the problem. I was finding myself with an awful lot of sympathy for them, I suppose, was the interesting thing. And also finding that in the state that I was in, or at least the Wildmother, I was realizing that the the line between being on one side of the betrayers or the other was very thin, and I found myself agreeing with them an awful lot, um, which was disconcerting. And then there was the Crawling King, and that's a whole nother, like, the minute that was put out there, I was like, that was the moment I realized, oh no, this is a family that really just wants to be together again one way or another. This is there's not a lot of love lost, honest to God. It's a lot of yelling. Oh boy,
Well, and
this
you
is
know,
bad.
with both, EXU Calamity and now Downfall, I think that the family aspect of this pantheon has like really, come into play. And I think that humanizes, but it humanizes the
No,
gods. Um and it's really fascinating because D&D, like the D&D gods aren't Greek. They don't take a lot of cues from like Greek mythology, but
no.
this is exactly how they're being portrayed. It's a big messy family.
Sandman was the other point that I was coming from at one point. I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
this is very the endless. Uh,
yeah.
what
Oh,
a clusterfuck of people.
man, I didn't
It's
even
just,
think of that until you said that, but that makes so much sense.
yeah. End of episode one, I was just having that. Oh no, this is not good. This is no wonder it's going so poorly.
um so as we're recording this, this is before
Mm,
episode 2 airs.
mm.
So, what can viewers expect to see in episode 2 and episode 3? What things should they look out for beyond, obviously, a city's going to crash into the earth here, one way or another. But is there anything that you're hoping that like the viewers kind of pick up on? Um,
I mean, oh boy. I'll say Brennan being Brennan, there's an awful lot of him looking at the core tenets of the sorts of gods we are and who we're trying to be, and finding really unique and interesting ways of twisting the knife, of going in there and taking the things that are the essential aspects of us and hurting us quite a bit. And so a lot of the game is that kind of philosophical, is that that philosophy and that conversation about should we even be there, who they are, what they want. Um, uh, Man, there is some places that we go and they are like, honestly, also just discovering the city as it stood before everything went poorly is so, um, uh, it's an amazing, yet in another amazing place. I wish I could spend more time in Exandria. I would go back over and over again.
Well, I was gonna ask that, like, there's always, everyone's always asking, especially, in the main Critical Role campaign, like what's going to happen next, what's going to happen
Mm.
next. And we only get teases of, the Age of Arcanum, the calamity and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be fun, seeing what happens to Exandria next, if it even survives. But I kind of want to see every time we go back into this world, like even at the end of campaign 2, I kind of just wanted to go and see like what weird ass shit, Matt and you guys all, can come up with if we go into like the wild past, that's not really well defined.
Honestly, there are so many places on that map that are not well defined. And the more I talk to, like, anytime we offhand bring it up with Matt, he's like, "Oh yeah, there's stuff over here. There's stuff over here." Just that's, but we haven't been there yet. Uh, it's like the Shattered Teeth. I could have spent another 30 games in the Shattered Teeth. My God, I was nowhere near finished. Like, and other things I cannot mention that we've just talked about in private, of just offhand him going, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there," and that's not fair. We can't. We would have a really hard time coming up with an in-game excuse as a group to go there, other than we want to. And so it is. It is very good. And then giving it a fourth dimension makes it even worse. So
Yeah, yeah.
I could spend a ton of time in the Calamity. Also, I will say the very beginning, the gods actually landing on Exandria would be very interesting.
Yeah. It's really funny because I know that the Titans have come up in like their in various points in time, and your current character
Oh yeah,
has a unique link to it. But that's another part of Exandria that really hasn't been super explored outside of campaign 3. And I just feel like, oh man, there's so much meat in the bone whenever you think about it. Just that the super early times, like it would be really cool just pitching this one out there to get the gods land on Exandria for the first time role playing experience. Critical Role people, make a note of that one.
I've had thoughts. So yeah.
One final question before we turn this over to the lightning round, because I have to ask, have you ever played with Brennan was this your first time playing with him?
Once or twice over Zoom during the pandemic for I want to say some charity streams, but I don't, that doesn't count.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, one of the things with Brennan is it's like his like secret power, because he's a comedian and stuff like that. He has such a way of like slowly drawing the knife and just gently sticking it in and turning it. Like you don't even realize the knife's in your body until it's happened. I know that's coming. What was it like knowing that reputation of who Brennan is as a DM? And was there like does that add like a meta sense of dread?
Oh, I mean, I've known Brennan quite a while, a very long while, and whatever time we've spent together has definitely never been enough. He's that sort of person. I love a tragedy. I could have had this game could have been 9 games, and I would have been perfectly content. I honestly would have wanted more, but I'm too big a fan of tragedy. I will watch the knife slowly slide between my ribs, and applaud the drama of it. So yeah, I will say he broke even my expectations with some of the things that are going to happen, and everybody brought some very interesting things to this game as it slowly rolls out. God, the episode 2's got some very fun things that go down.
I can't wait to watch it. Before we let you go, as a veteran of the character sheet, what's coming next, and that is the lightning round. So we're going to bring producer Pete on. Producer Pete is in a strange and foreign place for him. That is the Midwest.
Yes.
But what is today's lightning round topic, sir?
Well, we've got a few questions, and the end topic, our big one, is going to be we gave Liam the emo band or Byron poem challenge, and so it's only appropriate that we give you goth band or obscure Poe poetry.
Okay.
So we will end with either if something is a goth band or an obscure Edgar Allan Poe poem. But first,
is both possible or no?
I went out of my way.
I won't ask. I won't ask. Too soon.
Yeah. So first off, you the last time you played Caduceus, you said you went out of your way to not do a single point of damage, and that you wished you had gone this like sort of pure pacifist route a little bit earlier. If you were to play another cleric, would you consider doing the exact reverse, to be an all-offensive cleric to basically become a holy hand grenade of a cleric?
It had never occurred to me before, but having mentioned it, that's a really interesting thing. So yes, that's what a anti-cleric sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, become the cleric that everyone accused Jester of being for a while, but to like the 10th degree, to actually do it and not just meme it.
Oh yeah, make it an identity. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then,
never heal, not once.
Yes. And speaking of Brennan, you and Spencer and Rowan Hall made this amazing world for Candela Obscura, and you kind of intentionally steered clear of a lot of Lovecraftian references. But there's another horror game that both Brennan and Spencer played in the campaign, along with Matt and Bria and several others. called Kingdom Death Monster that kind of did the same thing. Made Eldritch Horror a brand new thing without relying on old tropes. So can you tell me which of the following is not a Kingdom Death Monster?
Shit.
I'm going to give you 4 options. On number 1, the Gregalope, a giant tumor-covered screaming antelope with a mouth where its ribcage should be, who was probably just named by a survivor called Greg. Number 2, Roderick, an apparently normal survivor, who you take back to your village, and he slowly proceeds to kill and eat all your village members until you finally have to confront him after he noticeably balloons up in weight. The Dung Beetle Knight, a massive beetle who has evolved to have the shape and appearance of a knight in armor, but whose illusion is ruined by their love for rolling around on a massive ball of dung. Or the Lonely Tree, a carnivorous tree that hypnotizes survivors, lulls them to sleep and long enough to be strangled by its roots, and then consumes them to make giant, chemically volatile fruits it uses for self-defense.
Oh, it's a bloody game. All of them sound probable. I will go with the Dung Beetle Knight.
The Dung Beetle Knight is actually a real one, and it's an amazing model.
Of course,
Roderick was made up. Roderick, the random.
Damn, Roderick sounded like fun.
Yeah. There's a similar encounter, but it's not quite that one.
I love the tree. I'm aware of the tree. That was the one.
The
like,
tree
I
model,
know this one. The tree model's amazing.
If we were at my house, I would turn the thing around and show it. But yeah. So now we're down to the final round of the lightning round: goth band or obscure Poe poem.
Oh boy.
These will all either one will be a goth band or an obscure Poe poem. And we're going to start with Bridal Ballad.
Poe.
It is a Poe poem. The 69 Eyes.
Goth band.
It is a goth band. Balaam and the Angel.
Poe.
It's a goth band.
Goddamn.
Deep in Earth.
That's Poe, I believe.
That is Poe.
Yes.
Fields of the Nephilim.
I want to say both. This is driving me bad shit. Goth band.
It is a goth band. The Bells.
Oof. Poe? Oh, it's killing me.
It is a Poe poem.
Okay.
Dreamland.
That one was a guess. Oh, what was there one more?
Oh, Dreamland.
Goth band.
Weirdly, a Poe poem. Doesn't sound
Never
like
heard
one,
of
but
it.
somehow. Faith and the Muse.
Goth band.
It is a goth band. Lacrimosa.
I'll go Poe.
Goth band.
God, yeah, that was definitely could have gone either way.
The Mortal Coil.
Goth band.
Yes. And Acrostic.
Oh God, every time I don't know, I'm gonna just guess Poe. I don't know that band.
It's Poe.
Okay.
All right, final 3.
Oh boy.
Seraphine.
Goth band.
It is. The Haunted Palace.
Poe.
Yes. And finally, Epigram for Wall Street.
Oh. I want it to be Poe, but I'm gonna say Goth band.
It is a Poe poem where he suggests that you can make more money by folding your money in half. It's a weird 4-line poem where he says, like, if you want to double your money, just fold it in half. It's one of his early poems.
That's a fascinating deep cut right there. Okay.
I think you got like 75% of those. That's maybe the best lightning round ever.
10 of 14.
Yeah, I think that beats Brennan's record, which was like 9 of 15 or something. It was It's number 1 on the leaderboard now.
Oh my God! Oh well, I'm sure I can fall further down that particular spiral.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. We appreciate your time as always, and can't wait to see what happens in Downfall. Any final words before we let you go?
I hope everybody enjoys the pain and drama as much as we enjoyed the pain and drama. And I can't wait also to hear from people who are a little far behind, because this is such a nice little floating piece of lore. So you don't really have to know too much about what's been going on.
Yeah.
So it's very different. Check it out. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It is great. It's a fantastic show. Even if you have never watched an episode of Critical Role, this honestly is a fun little, isolated segment of it that captures both the energy of the show in general and also explores a really cool bit of lore. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Taliesin for coming on. Be sure to do the likes, the subscribes, the comments, all the usual things I have to say in order to get the algorithm percolating. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.